Hey everybody, Chuck Marone with Strong Towns here. Snowy Minnesota morning. We haven't had any snow all winter, and now it's the end of March and we get a huge blizzard. I was watching this thing about Dave Ramsey, and I don't follow Dave Ramsey. I know who he is. I don't really subscribe fully, but I actually think that Dave Ramsey would kind of like me, or would like the way that I save money. I'm kind of a Midwestern, small town, prudent dude, so do a lot of savings. I don't know, kind of prudent with my money. The article, or the thing that I watched, were people upset with him over his advice on housing. And the pushback was he's giving unrealistic advice. You know, his advice is, I'm not going to say what his advice is. I don't watch Dave Ramsey enough, or don't know enough to say, but my sense of his advice is, hey, you should have a decent down payment. You shouldn't overreach. You shouldn't borrow more money than you can afford. You put yourself in a precarious position when you mismanage your debt, right? When you get too far extended. Better to save, better to sacrifice. The response from the Dave Ramsey group to this criticism was, you don't get a pass on math just because the housing market's crazy. And here's the thing, I'm kind of sympathetic to that. We're in this very weird situation where normal, or what's looked at as normal, or what's socially acceptable, is very weird. I'm going to actually walk in the street because no one's shoveled their sidewalks yet, and it's pretty deep. And there's no traffic because, it's a small town in Minnesota. Where we're at right now is really weird. And if you want to participate in the housing market, you do have to do things that don't make financial sense. If you're to buy a house today, you're buying at what is, by any measure, the largest peak in the housing market ever, right? The only reasonable thing from an investment standpoint, right, like something you're going to be locked up for years, the only reasonable conclusion you can make is that, in a sense, housing is going to continue to grow. There are bigger suckers out there. There's bigger fools out there. There's people who are willing to do even more crazy things than you. I realize it's not the calculus that we all have, right? Most people who get into a home today need a place to live. They're sick of paying rent. They realize that had they got in 2 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was, that they would be way wealthier and way better off today. But understand that that's part of the problem. That's part of the thing that is driving the insanity. When Dave Ramsey says you don't get a pass on math, he's right. You don't get a pass on math. And eventually these things will reset in some way that doesn't make, well, let me say this. They'll reset in a way that really hurts people. Really, really hurts people. And I think that's the crazy thing about this boom and bust housing market that we've created. Look, the president came out with a plan to try to help people with down payments and save you $4,000 or $5,000 up front. People laughed at it. I get it. I get what he's trying to do. The thing is, our goal for my entire lifetime, really since the end of World War II, has been to use a financial system to make it easier for more people to borrow more money. When you give people the ability to borrow more money, when you spread those payments out over longer periods of time, when you buy down, essentially skin in the game at the beginning, when you lower those requirements, what you do is you just make it easier for people to pay more for the same house. It's not that the house is worth more in the marketplace. It's not that people can actually afford more. They can afford more because you've made it easier for them to borrow more money. I think a lot of what we're seeing today, or let me just say, a lot of what we are seeing today, it's not that I think, it's like you can actually measure this, When people buy homes, they count on the appreciation. They count on the appreciation as part of the value. So if I buy a home for $500,000, I'm counting on earning $50,000 next year, 10% appreciation on my home. And I can take a certain percent of that, maybe it's 20% of that appreciation, maybe it's $10,000, and use that to pay my mortgage, to pay my loan, to mitigate the fact that I don't have any cash because I'm spending so much money on a house. I can use that for my vacation. I can use that for the other things in life that I want to do. Someone like Dave Ramsey, someone like me, I'm 50 years old, grew up at a different time. The time I grew up was insanity, but nothing like this, right? Someone like Dave Ramsey looks at this situation today and says, that's crazy. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You can't count on 10% appreciation a year. You can't count on being able to roll this thing over. You can't count on the market always staying at this crazy elevated way. You can't count on things not resetting to a normal, and then you're stuck in a house underwater for 15, 20 years. You can't move. You can't change houses. You can't change jobs. You basically have sacrificed your life to get into this house. This is really, really risky. Don't do it. I think all of that is true. Yet it's also true that you won't get in the house unless you're willing to do crazy things. And that's the conundrum that we put ourselves in. That's the place that we've created in our housing market, where in order to keep the economy growing, in order to keep the banks solvent, we got to have a lot of people borrow a lot of money and do crazy, crazy things. That is not how you build a healthy economy.